Cool, and we're live. All right, so welcome to the Memberverse podcast, where we interview those who are making an impact on the growth of the fitness industry. I'm your host, Dave Pancham, and also the CEO of GoPancham, your fitness marketing agency for freeing up your time and increasing your bottom line. Today's guest is Mr. Nino Di Maggio. You might recognize him from your Facebook and Instagram feed, being in F45's advertising. Nino is a multi-unit gym owner and operator, but like many of us out there, didn't start his journey in the fitness space. He came from Wall Street, actually. Nino, I'd like to thank you for being on the podcast today. And if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about your origin story and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. And thank you for having me, Dave. Excited to be here and catch up with you a little bit. So I am a lifelong athlete. I grew up playing soccer, so I'm a first gen kid. Both my parents weren't born here, so I grew up, playing soccer competitively as a kid in Europe as well, and ended up getting a scholarship to play soccer at the University of Virginia, and was on an academy team in the MLS as well. After that, while I was in school, I got very interested in the financial markets and Wall Street in general, because it just seemed like there's a lot of parallels between pro sports or competitive sports and Wall Street, because it's very fast-paced, competitive, exciting. So I kind of started getting drawn away from my original goal of pursuing pro athletics, and was drawn basically onto Wall Street. So it's kind of how or what took me in that direction. So being a competitive athlete and Division I athlete definitely was like a good stepping stone to prepare me for life in institutional sales and trading. So after 4 years at Virginia, I decided to go that direction instead of pursue pro sports, and started working in trading, and then spent the first 10 or 11 years of my career mostly on the sell side, doing sales and trading at Goldman Sachs, and most recently at BNP Paribas. Overlooking a global trading team across multiple time zones and products, and just very very lively and intense career path, and allowed me to travel the world and meet a bunch of incredible people. And then fast forward to today, the way how I got into F45s was I was always, my calling card was always, I was the fitness guy, the guy who loved to work out. So a lot of times, instead of taking clients to your traditional, boozy drinks or dinners after work, I would always suggest, hey, why don't we go work out and see how we feel instead? So that became my thing. And then I developed a fitness series at the bank that I was at BNP, where I basically would buy out different boutique fitness studios and invite multiple clients to a gym, and basically bring all the key contacts at our bank to work out with these clients. So I tried to basically scale out my passion and use it to build relationships within our bank, and it worked really, really well. And then still would do one-off workouts with clients, but the long story short is that was kind of the moment or moments where I decided, I want to do more in the fitness world and leverage my skill set that I built to do more. So it wasn't necessarily me wanting to leave, Wall Street and like these kind of cliche stories of like I was working a million hours a week and hated it and needed out. No, I'm very much still connected to that world, and most of my investors are people I worked with in the industry, in the finance industry. I just saw this as a really cool opportunity to grow, and I guess that first 10 years was a stepping stone to becoming an entrepreneur, and then scaling out a business that really takes advantage of all of my skills and passions. So this is kind of that part of that journey now, and we started with one studio, and originally planned to do one studio, and then as I did my due diligence and research, decided that it probably makes sense to try to establish an area of the country that's got a lot of upside, and in terms of growth and economics, which Nashville is a booming city and continues to to grow and then try to scale from there. So since we started, we've now have 4 studios in the area, and they all perform really well. And yeah, so that's my quick and dirty origin story, I guess.
I appreciate that. Were you already in Nashville before you choose that area, or was it very much like a
Yeah.
research based decision?
Yeah, I kind of skipped over that detail. Yeah, so when I was started at Goldman Sachs on the analyst program, they just kind of sit you on a trading floor, and the kid who was seated next to me randomly happened to be from Nashville and became my best friend, and still is my best friend to this day. And a few years in to the analyst program, he decided to leave to start his own real estate and hospitality company in Nashville, because it's where he's from, and it's grown, to be a really, powerhouse brand in this region and around the country. But as he was growing his brand and his company, I would visit him down here all the time. And every time I came, it's like the city would grow, not like by a building at a time. It would be like, it looked like another city every time I visited in terms of the growth and the brands coming down here. So I always kind of knew that there was a lot of things happening, and was really intrigued by it. And then when I discovered F45, I just figured there's probably already one in Nashville, and this is about around 2017 or 18. There wasn't any in the state of Tennessee at that point. So it was kind of just like a right place, right time, and everything was linking up perfectly. And then I just called, my best friend and said, "Hey, I think I want to open one of these in Nashville," and then started, the due diligence process, and then ended up moving here right when we broke ground for construction on the first location. So it was kind of yeah, that's kind of how it happened. So I was in New York City, my whole career before this F45 project started.
How about that? And so your first location opened when? Can you like walk me through the timeline of like location two, three,
Yeah,
four?
sure. So our first location was we broke ground in August of 2019, and then we grand opened in October of 2019, and that's our Midtown studio. So I moved here right when construction started and oversaw that entire process, the pre-sale. And again, this is like my first time ever running a business, so everything was just, I essentially had no idea what I was doing, and I was figuring it out as I went. So that was our first studio, and that opened up with a lot of success. It was terrifying, but really successful. Pre-sale and open, and then COVID happened, as we all know, at the beginning of 2020. So just kind of a testament to how great the F45 brand was, and just the base of members that we had too in the Nashville community. By the time COVID happened, we already had such a strong base that even though we let all the members know, like, hey, we have no idea what's happening, we're just going to put everyone on pause. Almost the entire membership base, which was a few hundred people at that time, said, no, keep us all live. We want to support the
Wow.
studio. And then we would just do the Zoom workouts, as everyone remembers, probably happening all over the world. We would do, I think it was 3 Zoom workouts a day, basically every day. And that's kind of how we ran for the next several months until things, restrictions started to ease. And we didn't know, what was going to happen in terms of additional units, but basically things started to ease up, and our studios or our studio at the time, the first one, really took off through COVID because of the fact that we were able to adapt, had a strong membership base, and then when we eased up, we were able to change our format so that everyone could come back into the studio and stay socially distanced. So a lot of studios were not able to adapt as quickly as F45, and that ended up being something that we were able to leverage and take advantage of. So our studios were just packed, or just kind of every class was sold out, for basically most of 2020 and 2021 because of the adjustments we were able to quickly make with the help of HQ. And then because it was COVID, and the real estate market, specifically commercial real estate market, was so uncertain, we had the demand, and we knew we wanted to open an additional one. So we were able to get a pretty unbelievable lease set up with great terms in the downtown Nashville area, which is called the Gulch, and signed a great lease down there in a spot that's a very high traffic area for location number 2, which was I believe in 21. Yeah. So
Can I
that was
stop you right there
great.
for a second? Did you
Yeah.
did you have any fear around that decision during that time with like that's the heat of COVID right then and it's like I'm going to open the second one.
Yeah, I mean, look, I had a ton of fear just from the start when COVID broke. I thought, man, I'm going to be going back to to New York City with my tail between my legs, like asking everyone to hire me back, and I got to call my old clients now and say, just kidding, let's keep working out. But yeah, there was a ton of fear and uncertainty. I can't understate that enough, but yeah, like I said, luckily we had a lot of people that supported us and maintained. But yeah, in terms of the second unit, I think the world was kind of easing back into things a little bit, and especially in Nashville versus maybe other markets. It was only we shut down fully in March, and by May we were able to have like somewhat of a um, we're able to have people in the studios at a reduced rate and distance, but at that time there was good indications that like the world was going to eventually get back to a better place. And when we opened that second studio, we were still doing the kind of COVID restricted setup, which basically we turned each studio into a grid, and with big kind of squares, like
Mhm.
essentially with tape, and you'd walk into your grid and stay there, and then each grid was socially distanced. So we were prepared to open that studio in that way, which we did initially, and then all the restrictions kind of started to come off subsequently after that, after we opened, which I believe was June of 21. So a little bit of fear, but based on the demand that we had at the first studio, we knew that there was enough to carry a second one, since it was nearby and like essentially the same market.
Nice. And then, well, actually, I want to take a quick step back here because I thought it was pretty amazing to hear that the freezing of memberships, and then all the members said that, like, no, keep on, or most of the members said, keep on charging us. That says something pretty awesome about like the community. What was working? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. I think it's first of all, the F45 product is just great. The programming, the fact that you never do the same workout twice, the way how they split up the days is great. So I think you have that base, and then on top of it, like I was just like, I was me, and I think we had 3 other coaches, my head coach at the time, and myself, and the big thing that I focused on Wall Street, and that I focused on with these studios, because it was the only thing that I knew, was it was to really focus on, immediately building trust with people, and establishing strong relationships, because I felt like that is what carried me and set me apart on Wall Street. It's just like maintaining a high level of integrity, and then just really trying to genuinely connect with people. In New York, there's thousands of fitness studios, and I probably went to maybe all of them, or most of them. So there's definitely a wide variety of experiences that you have where you're walking in and you kind of feel like you're on a conveyor belt, just being checked in and told, all right, get to your spot, we'll see you later. Where there's other places where I could still remember the way that they made me feel, and the way that the full experience, and I would write those things down, and kind of keep a little bit of like a log of what those things were, and just the little details, like remembering someone's name and just treating everyone like they're essentially walking into your own living room. We did that from the start, and I think that's kind of what gave us an edge, and continues to give us an edge, because it's really easy to get, I guess, I don't know if the word stuck, or just get bored with doing the same small things over and over again. But I think the consistency of calling people by their name and treating them really well, and asking them, how they found out about us and where they're from, I think that goes a long way, where you'll create a little niche in someone's head where they'll never forget that experience. And my goal is to make sure that we're consistently delivering a really good in studio experience. So we did that we did from the start. In terms of operating a business, it was I was kind of learning as I went at the beginning, but I think that that's what created that instant loyalty when COVID happened and no one knew what was gonna, what was gonna happen in general in the world. So everyone was super willing to stick with us because of the level of attention we gave them in the studio.
And now you have Studio 3, Studio 4. How have you been able to scale the caring? Because you can't do that yourself in 4 studios.
Yeah, single unit to multi unit is a whole different ball game. Again, coming from the sports background, there's like a saying in soccer, at least, let the ball do the work. So at first, I was just trying to be, everything to everyone, just sprinting around, so to speak, the sprinting around, chasing the ball basically all day long. It's pretty relatively easy to do that with one studio, but when you have four, you could get tuckered out very, very quickly because there's always some sort of fire drill going on, whether it's, we're out of trash bags or a TV, glitching or a speaker, someone thinking the speakers blew out even though they were just muted maybe, or I'll give you a whole list of examples that, happen relatively regularly. So yeah, the biggest thing was just kind of continuing to set up systems and processes to anticipate any of these potential issues that happen, and then obviously hiring superstar coaches that really want to be in this to help people and that don't have basically an ego about being in a group fitness setting. It's really F45 specifically is all about being on the floor with the members, one-on-one attention. A lot of other concepts, it's more, you're on a stage on a mic and everyone's looking up at you. So this is kind of different. It's almost opposite in that we want the coaches to really be engaging and try to make everyone feel like they're the only person in the room, with one-on-one contact. So just hiring really great people and then putting those systems and processes in places and constantly evolving them. So very like quick parallels, like on a trading floor, when you're doing sales and trading, you're taught a lot of these, techniques, systems, processes for if things go wrong, basically. So every day you walk on a trading floor and you're just ready. It's like game time, and you have a very healthy sense of urgency. But every day, the global markets are unpredictable. So it's the same approach we take is, we're prepared the right way. We know what we need to do. We need to, treat people well, greet them warmly, think about any progressions, let's say, or regressions on certain movements. If it's a more technical class, keep an eye on XYZ stations because that might have a little bit more risk associated with it if it's more technical for a first timer, let's say, for someone with an injury. And then the variable that's every day is who's coming through the door. Yeah, we have our established members, but Nashville's a heavy tourist city, so we could get people we've never met before. So that's kind of a really strong parallel to the global markets is we have no idea who's walking through the door, so we want to be as prepared as possible to take care of them, whether it's a personality thing, that they have injuries, whether they're young, old, super fit or not as strong. So how do we adjust accordingly and on the fly? And then if anything does go wrong beyond that, like more systems wise, music issue, TV, tech, whatever. How do we deal with that under like pressure, which basically just means like if it's happening, if these issues happen during, before, or after a class, how do you deal with it? So basically, again, ultimately, even if issues go wrong, how do we make it seem to the member or the person in the studio like everything's running smoothly, which I think we do a really good job of doing on a daily basis.
That's awesome. And you mentioned earlier, well, first off, you made this transition from finance into, getting into opening a gym. So you had to kind of like figure out everything on the go. And if I understand correctly, you won some awards for being like a top operator not too long after that, if like 2020, 2021. So you clearly figured out some things about operating a business. And I know you're, a decently influential person within the whole space of your franchise, and probably get a lot of like franchisees asking questions. And I think with all the different franchises that we've worked with and seeing franchisees, is like operating a business is still the biggest challenge for people. They think, sometimes you think you're buying a franchise and you're like, I'm buying a business in a box and it's ready to go. And that's not the case.
Right.
Um, how what is it that led to your success here as being like a really good operator, and what advice can you give somebody in terms of trying to become a good operator of their business?
Yeah, I mean, I think you made a great point there. It's not a business in a box. I think a lot of times you think of franchise as like, okay, it's an established brand, so it should be pretty easy. It should be like passive income. Um, I don't know. There might be passive income franchises that exist that you just set it and forget it, but this is certainly not one of them. And I don't know any personally know any franchisees across multiple different sectors like QSR or restaurants or anything else that you know they have a pass they look at it as passive. You have to be in it or at least have a manager that's in it. I own, operate, manage all the studios, so I'm a very proactive owner operator. So that's the first thing I tell anyone who ever calls me for advice is this is not a passive game at all. You have to be really in it, and the members will notice very quickly if you're not if you're not around, you're not in it. I think one thing I learned is don't try to like over delegate. If you can do it yourself, do it, and then if there's a way that you could leverage a tool or a system, like for example us working with you guys, that won't dumb down the member experience, it'll enhance the experience, then definitely go for it. So again, like, you guys are a great experience or a great example. I personally, and even people who help me on sales, we personally don't have the capacity to call people within a few minutes and get them try to get them set up into the studio. I still personally try to call as many people as I can and personally introduce myself, but it's just impossible with 4 studios to do that. So you guys have kind of supercharged that very, very top of the funnel effort to make sure that no one goes ignored or slips through the cracks, so to speak. But yeah, I think a big thing is just, yeah, you have to be very proactive, and then ego is another big thing. Is you meet a lot of this is outside of F45, but could be inside as well. But you meet a lot of franchisees who kind of think they understand and they know how they're going to do things. So I'm super confident. I wake up every day thinking I'm going to crush it, but I don't have an ego in that. I think my way is the only way. I probably evolve my model and my approach almost daily. If there's something that I think I could be doing better and someone gives me feedback, I'll always think about adjusting and doing that. So I think as a small business owner and as you scale out, it's really imperative that you think about ways you could continuously enhance your systems and the model, as long as you're not sacrificing the member experience. That's the biggest thing. And then being, so having an ego and thinking your way is the best way and not ever considering anything else. Sometimes it gets people in trouble, and then it's too late by the time they realize, or they've gone down the rabbit hole, too deep. So that's what I would say for.
What do you think makes a difference between like a basic operator versus a tier one or like an A grade operator?
Yeah, I think it's just execution. I think people get, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? They get kind of exhausted quickly because they don't have a good setup in place, and then after a few years, you'll find some operators just find it somewhat, or they want to focus on more of the exciting and glamorous stuff versus the daily deliverables that are needed to run a successful business. So they forget about how do you greet people when they walk in the door, remembering people's names, even when people are exiting, when people need to cancel for whatever reason. Let's say people have to, whatever, they moved, they got relocated. You think, okay, well, that's, this is my business and they're leaving my business, so I don't really care about talking to them on the way out. Like, okay, cool, you're canceled, bye. Where me, every time someone cancels, I try to get them on the phone or see them in person, talk to them, figure out, okay, you're moving for a job. That's exciting. Where are you going? Can I connect you to an F45 in that city? And there's been many times where people return because of the way that we treat them on the way out. So I think, a base level operator versus operators that are consistently outperforming thinks about every point of the life cycle of a person that's in your studio, even the people that leave, because a lot of times they come back or they still have a network that you didn't think about in that area, and they'll send people your way. Like I have so many people that come to my studio and they'll tell me, oh, I came because my friend, whoever told me I should come check it out, and they loved when they were a member 4 years ago. And I like sometimes like, oh man, I have trouble even remembering who the person is, but I'll be like so grateful that probably we treated them really nicely, the whole way through, even when they had to quit for whatever reason. So yeah, I would say it's just clean execution and being able to repeat that on a daily basis. Like having that really strong daily production model and going into every day with that mentality. Not letting your guard down, like which is again a parallel to being in sales and trading. You just have to have this kind of healthy sense of urgency at all times. And I know it's not for everybody. People just want to chill sometimes, but I have very little chill in a lot of ways.
How much are you like leveraging data to like help you make, run the businesses and make decisions, taking some of the emotion out of situations and
Yeah.
being able to be an executor?
Yeah. So one of the big things kind of over the years now that we've been able to look at is, the main KPIs is, how many leads are coming in, how many leads are turning into trialists, how many trialists are converting into members, how long they're staying, and also pauses. A lot of times, people request pauses. So after, I guess, the first year or two, we started to have a pretty decent sample size of data, and we saw some very clear trends on when pausing would go up. And, for us at Midtown, we're close to 3 major universities. So we'd always have a massive uptick in pausing right around May because kids were either graduating or leaving for the summer. And then similarly in December because it's holiday break. So once we kind of had that data, then we were able to, and there was a few other times throughout the year too, like there's other breaks that, when you're out of college for more than a few years, you just kind of forget, but the data would show it because you'd see these pops. So then that allowed us to then subsequently time and plan out some sales to offset, or promotions, I should say, to offset those pops and pauses. So, getting people in like, buying discounted or buying packs, let's say, where you buy 10 and get, 2 things that don't really have a ton of a hard cost for us, but still create value for members. We implemented some of those just to kind of offset that temporary dip in revenue. And then a lot of times we'd be able to translate a lot of those shorter term deals to get people in the studio into long-term members because of the fact that we have such a strong team and we're treating everyone so well in the studio. So that was all kind of due to data on the first in the first year or two. That's kind of how we set up all of our promotions or sales or just anything around that.
So now you know what to expect, that you're not going to panic.
Right, exactly. Yeah, some people will call me and they'll say, "Hey, the summer has been horrible. We have like half our membership base paused," and then I could give them some suggestions about how to reach out to people who might be visitors in the area or just shorter term deals to just get people in the door and then try to convert them and just make it through until everything comes back off pause and you're pumping again, which for us is really in the next week or two from right now, because we're in early August, so all the kids will start coming back now, and we have several pauses that'll just come off board. So we'll be really pumping now, hopefully at the end of August into September.
That'll be nice. Over the past like 6 to 12 months, what's been working well for you in terms of helping to grow the businesses?
Yeah, so a big thing for us that we found is just referrals, and really pushing the referrals versus just like doing your typical like text, or email blast for like a sale or a discount. Instead of discounting, we'll just ask people to bring in a friend or maybe do a certain day of the week or a certain class time that's usually lighter, and ask people to bring in a friend for free. And that's worked really well. So basically asking coaches to really dig into the relationships that they have from the members in the class times that they coach, and say, hey, really, I want you guys to put a little bit more effort this week into asking the members, like, do you have anyone that's been kind of asking you or curious about the studio? Like, this would be a great time to have them come in. Like, bring them in. I could treat them to a class, or we could get them on trial, and go that way. And that's been kind of the best way and the stickiest type of growth we've had, because when you have an accountability team or partner, whether it's someone bringing in their spouse or their coworkers or friends, then they just end up staying so much longer. So we've really put over the years, we've put, and specifically in the last 6 to 12 months, we've put extra emphasis on just asking for referrals. And asking is a big deal, because you think people would just bring them naturally, but just like you have to ask for the sale, you got to ask for the referral. So if we have coaches that people have built trust up with and relationships with, coming to them and looking them in the eye and saying, hey, do you think you could bring in 2 or 3 people that and have them try us out? They're always more than willing to try to do that to make our coaches happy, because we work so hard to make them happy. So it's not just focusing on referrals. You have to execute the task of having people, boots on the ground, staff, physically ask individuals, hey, can you bring in a friend, your spouse? I know you keep talking about how you want your husband to or your boyfriend or your fiance to get into a little better shape for whatever upcoming trip or a wedding. Why don't you bring him in? Let's see how he likes Tuesday's class. So really actually asking for the referrals has made a big difference versus mentioning it on an email or like a newsletter.
So yeah, so what I gather there is step one is don't do it in this big general broadcast way. That's not going to get you the highest impact. So step two is really leveraging the relationship. So leveraging your coaches, trainers, and their relationship with specific members. And is there another piece to that where you're because what we found with some people, here's an interesting that we've noticed. We have clients where they run regular trial offers all the time, and their coaches and their trainers will tell their teams, or tell their members hey, we have this trial offer, please bring your friends in. And they don't really get much out of it all the time. But sometimes when you rewrap it, so one of the tricks we'll tell them to do, it's let's say your standard offer is 7 days free, is hey, for this week, do a friends and family week. It's still a 7 days free, but you've just rewrapped the gift, and it gets people excited and they go take action on it. And what I kind of gather there with what you were saying is sometimes you'll do it with okay, we know the 5:30 class on Friday is really slow. We're going to hit our members up in there and say bring them in for this class right here. Is that kind of the strategy, looking at a little more strategically in those situations?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the positioning that actually makes me think of a kind of, I guess, a tactic or a strategy we've taken in that way. That's a little bit, it's very similar to what you're saying. So a lot of times what we'll do is, if we get someone who works at a company that we know has a large base of employees. So we have, a company locally that is famous for sending packages very on time and quickly, that just establish themselves here. So whenever we get people from there, usually it's they have pods of people where it's 20 or 30 people. So we'll always say, hey, you're already tight with your work group. Why don't you let us host a VIP workout just for your work group, and bring them in? It'll be a good way to continue, team building. A lot of times people had just moved here from Nashville. I mean, most people from Nashville or that live here aren't from here. So it's really easy to kind of have them gather up a group of their fellow kind of newbies to Nashville. So we'll reposition the trial offer as, hey, why don't you bring all your friends in here for a VIP private class, and we'll either make it private, like I said, or we'll just block out 10 spots of a slower class, but we'll position it as we want to do this for you, and basically create a VIP experience just for you guys. And people love that. And it's been, I'm giving away too many secrets here, Dave.
That's a good one, though.
It's been a great way to convert, a relatively large amount of people at once at times. So we've had great success doing this in general, but there's been a few times where almost the entire group that we brought in converted because they had that kind of FOMO, hey, all my coworkers are going to do this. And in some occasions, the most successful time we ever did this with, we did it with a sorority, and we converted. I think it was like something like 50 girls after doing two back-to-back private VIP workouts. It was like they all did it in a giant wave in a pack. That was when we like in the first year of operations. But we'll do it with smaller like work groups as like a team building thing. But again, like you said, we changed the positioning from, instead of a trial, we want to set up. We want to have you guys come in and try us out, but we need to start this off with a VIP class just for you guys. We'll block out spots, or if it's a big enough group, we could just create, an additional class time. And then what happens is they end up loving it, and we get them all set up on a paid trial, and then we convert a lot, over half of them on most occasions. But again, the positioning of it and creating that sense of urgency or soft pressure with coming as a group, because you're all gonna, you're all on the same team anyway. It makes it hard to say no to at least that initial class, and then that's kind of all we need, because people love it once they're in the studio.
I was going to ask you if you leverage a strategy like that, considering that your background was like you're buying out a whole gym to basically do your own community building in a way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm basically copying methods I used to use, back in the day. But yeah, that works. That works really well in this case too, because it creates a sense of exclusivity, and then people are always looking for unique ways to build their own teams and strengthen the relationships within their own teams. So we have basically, four blank canvases around town that people could use that for when they need it in terms of team building.
I think that's a good gold nugget to end it with, because we've coached and talked to clients about leveraging, we call it like trying to do like corporate partnerships, trying to find opportunities like that. One of the easiest things, we used to have this as a little trick. We used to have this on our website, was a client intake form, so that like, hey, when you get a new client, have them fill this out and always make sure they put their employer, so you automatically know who their employer is. Like, oh, you work at UPS, like now you know the way in, like that. So we've told clients tons and tons of times to do that. Very, very few do it. I'm glad you just pointed out that how huge of a success it actually can be. It's
Right.
one of the gold nuggets out there that most people are just overlooking, because sometimes we
Yeah.
just think about hitting the easy button of putting money into digital advertising. While it works, there's still other things that work really, really well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just so easy. The hard cost on bringing in, blocking out 10 spots in a class or doing an extra class is not very high versus, adding more marketing dollars to your weekly marketing spend. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess final question for you, like what are your future plans for your F45 studios? Do you envision building an empire? Are you good where you're at? What's the future look like for Nino?
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of see where things go. Yeah, I've had some opportunities in the past to grow with some groups that have approached us before, to help scale, and we've respectfully declined them, but stayed close with some of these, bigger multi-unit operators that exist. And F45 itself has a few other brands and concepts that they're working on that are really exciting. The one that I'm kind of most intrigued with, it's called FS8, which is like more of a Pilates and tone concept. But just F45 alone, some of the stuff that we have in the pipeline just for the next 6 months in terms of how we're going to continue to enhance the programming, some newer equipment that's going to be introduced, has me very excited just for the future, just for my 4 studios. So yeah, I'm just, we'll see kind of how things roll out, but either way, I'm just excited to be kind of on this path and growing these businesses as they are. We'll see how much more I scale or not as things roll out in the future.
You got options, so.
Yeah, some options. Yeah, but not overthinking it, just enjoying it for now.
Yeah. Well, Nino, I really appreciate your time today. Hey, if anybody wanted to just, reach out to you, have a chat with you, they feel like you have some great knowledge or something like that, how could they get a hold of you? What would be the best way to reach out?
Yeah, I don't know if you could leave it anywhere, but just my email, which is just my first initial last name, or it's actually A because my first name is Antonino, but just A is really easy. And then yeah, if they DM any of the studios or my personal Instagram, whatever works.
Awesome.
But I'm always available, always happy to talk to people.
Awesome. We'll grab those links and we'll make those available for anybody that's looking for you. Otherwise, awesome. I really enjoyed having you on today. Thank you for dropping some knowledge and dropping some of your little secret gems at work for you. But hopefully some people take that and run with it. But otherwise, thank you so much for being on today, Nino.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Talk to you soon.